If you're a business owner and you're a founder of a company who's looking forward to finally stepping out of having to do anything to do with sales, you have to make sure that you watch today's video because I'm going to break down exactly what should currently exist in your business if you're going to realistically step out of the day-to-day sales functions and continue to scale that company and not see a big drop in sales. Let's get into it. So the first harsh truth that you have to recognize about actually exiting sales is that if you're asking when you can exit sales calls, you're probably not ready. So this isn't about a time in business or revenue milestones. It's about having a genuine sales machine that is working without you. It has the ability to book, close, and close calls. It has the ability to do all of the tracking. It has everything documented throughout its process. So the question isn't when can I exit, but it's have I built something that someone else can operate without me? So that requires systems, data, and process documentation that most founders have yet to even understand that needs to be. So let's talk about like what a designated sales process actually is. Your sales process is not about, let me just get on a call and see what happens. It's not about having the instinct. It's about a real sales process that includes a defined structure for every stage of the call. So what happens on the opening call? What happens for your discovery questions? How do we properly handle these objections? What are the typical objections that we typically get? What are the different frameworks that I need to use for closing? And what are the follow-up sequences? What has to happen after every single appointment that I book, whether it be the intro or the closing call? What all has to happen in between? So when we look at the call structure itself, we're looking at things like the opening of the call, what happens through our agenda, what do we need to say on that agenda, and what are the transitional points that happen throughout that. And then we look at discovery questions. What are all the different questions that you need to be asking to make sure that this is a qualified prospect, that this is somebody that you can actually help, that this is somebody that needs to fix the problem that they have today? What are those documented questions? And that should be in like a bank of questions that you have ready and available for any sort of BDR to come in and help you with this process. And then, of course, the objection handling, scripted responses to every common objection that you have ever heard. And then your closing framework. What is the step-by-step approach that you are currently using to ask for that client's business? Requirement number 2, that is the ability to book and close non-referral deals to the tune of at least 20%. See, referrals, they just mask a broken sales system. If you cannot consistently generate cold pipeline, book calls outside of your network, and close them to at least a 20% closing rate, you are not ready to hand off the sales yet. Period. Okay, because you have to have first the way in which you generate the appointments, and then how do we book the appointments? What's qualified? And how can we take somebody through to a warm introduction? And then how do we close those people? How do we make sure that we're able to close, 1 in 5 non-referral calls to be coming into clients? And that 20% close rate should come from non-referral traffic sources. Please do not come, and I have this happen a lot where I talk to a lot of business owners and they say, Kara, you just have to get that person in front of me. I have a 90% closing rate. Yeah, so does everybody else on the planet who has a referral lead that comes in. You cannot base your closing rates off of referral deals. It is not the same thing, I promise you. The next here is having a multi-channel system that can generate pipeline. We do not rely on a single channel in order to book appointments. That is a big, big no-no because that is a huge red mark on your business. In fact, if you're ever trying to get any sort of acquisition ever inside your company and the brokerage or the company or the entity of whomever's looking at purchasing and they see that you are relying on a single source that could be taken away from you, that is a big deal. So we want to ensure that you have multiple places like email, LinkedIn, content, strategic partnerships, paid advertising, retargeting campaigns. You have a multi-channel approach that pulls people in and books appointments predictably. And then you have tracking. So this is a big, big part. You are tracking all of the metrics because if you cannot answer basic questions about your sales performance, you are not ready to manage a sales team. You won't know what's broken. You're not going to know what's actually working or where to focus and improve because the data is not there to present you to what the answer is. So looking at things like daily pipeline activity, how many calls are you booking per day? What is that trend? Looking at show rates and conversion. What percentage of your book calls actually happen? What percentage of those actually convert? Or the cost per acquisition. This one is crazy to me when we don't have clarity on this because if you understand and truly knew what your cost per acquisition numbers were, you wouldn't get scared when things aren't going the way that you want to see. Because if you actually knew that, well, it costs me $1,000 to acquire a client, but that's a $50,000 contract, you'd want to spend that money all day. So when you're trying out new campaigns and you're trying out new platforms, we don't get scared when we spend a whole bunch of money because we know what's on the other side for us because we understand our numbers. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but the guy who can spend the most and can outspend his competition wins. So having clarity on what it costs to actually acquire a client gives you so much power and so many better nights of sleep when you see all those dollars flowing out on your marketing, but you know that this is what it costs to acquire a $50,000 contract. And then, of course, having your weekly performance review. Are you reviewing these metrics weekly? And are you making adjustments based off of that data that you're getting the door? The next we have is building a complete sales team structure. If you're reviewing every call, jumping into Slack threads, or fixing objections live, unfortunately, you are not out of the sales. You're just supervising the chaos that's happening. A true exit is going to require complete team structure where each role has clear responsibilities. So number one, we have the SDRs. They are there to book appointments, dedicated team members who solely focus on pipeline generation. And then you have number two, the closing convert prospects. So specialized reps. So those are your sales reps, those are your BDRs who handle qualification and closing conversations. And then you have the sales manager that oversees all of that. So that's somebody who tracks the performance. They coach them, they keep them up, and they make sure that they maintain the standard that you hold at the company. And then you have somebody who monitors the KPIs, and that's going to be you at this point. And that's where we're reviewing the data, the strategy, or the individual conversations that are happening. Next big requirement here is being very clear as to who your ideal client is. If your team is going to sell on your behalf, they have to know exactly who can get results for you and who cannot. Coming out with very vague definitions like B2B founders doing 500,000 to 5 million, that just creates a whole bunch of chaos and will bring in clients that don't get the best results for you, and also messaging and marketing that doesn't actually work all that well. So figure out who your perfect fit is. So what are those specific characteristics that could indicate some solution? What are the red flags that your team must avoid? And what are hard and fast disqualification rules? What are hard boundaries that you put in place that this is not somebody that your company should be working with? Clarity is what's going to prevent those reps from overselling, closing the wrong clients, having anything like chargebacks. You have to be very, very clear on who it is that you can get results for. The seventh requirement is that your offer must be stable. We are not ready to exit sales if you're still adjusting pricing monthly or quarterly, if you're tweaking packages or tweaking the deliverables, if you're rewriting the core promise, if you're changing the fulfillment model, if you're testing out different angles and positioning, that is a very sure sign that we are just not ready to exit the sales yet. So founders who are experimenting while reps are still selling, this is going to equal misalignment, frustrated customers, and a whole bunch of chaos. So one of my rules is being able to handle at least 100 calls first on your own. So there's no substitute for volume. You should have pattern recognition. You should have objection mastery, psychological understanding, and clear recognition of what those buying signals are before you delegate this out. 100 calls is the minimum threshold for developing this, true expertise. So again, over 100 calls done, you know what your most common objections are, and you know what are the buyer types, what are the distinct personalities and decision-making patterns that emerge throughout the sales process. The next big piece here, the next big piece here in order to be able to exit from the sales is being able to predict your revenue within a 15% point spread. So revenue predictability is the ultimate sign of a sales machine. If your monthly revenue is swinging 50K one month, 150K the next, 30K after that, your sales system is totally unsaleable and is not ready for true delegation. So some signs that you should be looking for is consistent and how much pipeline that you generate every single month, stability in your conversion rates across time, reliable lead sources that perform consistently, and repeatable sales cycles with known duration. So if you came to me and you say, I want to grow to $1 million per month next year, we need to have a very clear way on how we do that. And the only true way that we can know that this has been mapped out properly is looking at the past. And if we don't have the past yet, then there's no way that you can realistically come to me and say, I know how to grow within a 15% point range. The math must support a sales team. So you have to have enough margins. in order to be able to have somebody come on board. If you are currently selling all the sales, you're doing everything yourself today, and your margins are 30, your profit margin are like 30%, 20%. How are you going to be able to bring somebody on? You have to have enough room in there to give good, healthy commissions. You have to have enough in there to give good, healthy commissions to a sales manager. So think about the pricing that you have today, because there has to be enough left over that still allows you to acquire that customer, that still allows you to pay for the operations, the bookkeeping, the administrative work, all the things that run outside of just fulfilling that client. We have to have enough left over that allow us to experience scale that does not involve us. So make sure that you have nice, healthy margins that are going to allow for that, because good sales reps, good sales managers, they want to make a lot of money. Like I'm talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, sometimes $50,000 a month is what some of the best A-player sales reps and sales managers are currently making. So you have to make it enticing enough for somebody to want to come over to your offer. And if you haven't left enough margin into your pricing, it's going to be very hard for you able to do that without losing money on every sale that they bring in the door for you. So requirement number 11, replacing yourself without cutting revenue. So the transition has to make economic sense. So if you're closing $150,000 per month, but your new rep is only going to close $40,000 per month, you just cut your revenue by 73%. Okay, and that's a big cut in revenue. So you want to look at considering a ramping up. So not just shadowing, joint calls, but a gradual handoff. So when we bring on this new sales team, they are not to get every single appointment on board. Now that you've hired them, you've put them in place, one of the worst things that you can do is just say, okay, I'm done. I can now step out. I can concentrate on other things. You have to be very, very much a part of that process and keep an eye on your numbers so that you can foresee how much revenue that they're going to bring in, and it's not going to tank the performance of the company. The next is you have to start to detach your identity from being the closer. You have to understand when to be needed. You have to have a love of winning. You have to control with those tendencies. If you can't trust others to, represent the company properly and get rid of any sort of hero complex, you do not want to have to swoop in and save deals every single time. You want to be able to have them have the tools that are needed to realistically close and scale these deals without you needed there. One of the big truths here is that a lot of founders really shouldn't be exiting sales. It's the most important part of the company. And until you have all of these pieces in place, the systemization, the ability to measure your metrics, and the ability to build around it and create support systems and be able to elevate above, we are not ready, and you should not be in a quick rush to make this happen. So if you like this video and you want to see others, comment down below. If you have a question about one of your own sales processes right now, about some of the KPIs, or what you're trying to do with your sales team, be sure to leave me a comment down below and let's have a quick chat. If you are looking for more help, we are currently looking for 2 more revenue sharing partners for Q2 of 2026. I will leave a link down in the description where you can book a call and we can see if this is something that we could possibly help you out with. Either way, make sure you like the video, make sure to subscribe, as we put out new videos every single week about how we close deals from completely cold audiences and help people in the B2B space scale up their companies. Thanks.